Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the March 7th study session. This is happening at Dearborn Heights City Hall, City Council meeting. It's a study session specifically in regards to bank reconciliation. We're going to have from Plant Moran, we have two representatives here, Brian and Michelle from Plant Moran. They'll be up to speak first. We'll also have the treasurer speaking and possibly the controller, and then go from there. So if you'd like to start, please.
First thing, I have to commend your technology. This little doodad is fantastic.
All right.
I haven't seen this before at another city. So on the screen, I have a slideshow that I've put together. Thank you very much for the chance to work with you and to speak with you this evening. The topic that we're going to discuss is bank consolidation recommendations. So as I've talked at previous council meetings, there's nothing wrong, nothing illegal, nothing bad about having as many bank accounts as you want to have. You could have 50 more than you have right now, and it's not wrong.
It's best practice, though.
But it's a matter of efficiency. So our recommendation, and we'll go through a timeline of how it could happen, as well as some benchmarking compared to other cities in the area. But our recommendation is to take the group of bank accounts that you currently have, shrink them down and consolidate, and implement what's called pooled cash. So in a pooled cash system, we don't worry that water money is in one account and general fund money is in another account and street money is in another account. All the money can sit in one account, and the software that you have, the general ledger through BS&A, that can keep track of whose money is whose. So I'd like to go through, just give you a summary to start off. So the list of bank accounts and investment accounts that we looked at the last time I was here had 44 separate accounts held at 5 different banks or institutions. Of those 44, 4 have been closed at some point, leaving 40 left. Question has been asked several times, well, what's normal? And my response was 10 to 15. Depends on size, depends on complexity of the municipality. There's a lot of reasons why you might need an account for some reason or another.
When can we ask questions, Dave?
Well, let him do his first initial.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
And then we'll go right after.
Thank you.
Questions.
we should agree on some terminology first, because a lot of times people say account and fund and they kind of mix it up what they mean, or the word restricted. So in accounting terms, restricted typically speaks to how the money must be used, not how you keep the money, not where you hold it. For example, you have a sanitation millage. That millage is authorized by state law, and that money is restricted. It can only be used for sanitation. You can't use it to pay firemen. You can't use it to build the water system. It is only for sanitation. That's restricted. It doesn't mean that that money, the proceeds from the millage, does not mean that that money has to be in a separate bank account. It just means that you can only spend it on that particular purpose. Physical segregation of the money or actual segregation is not typically a requirement. In some select cases it is, but by and large it is not. So fund versus bank account, some funds do require, some activities such as the money that the Michigan Department of Transportation provides you to take care of your major and local streets. That is a case of the state requiring you to have a separate fund, not bank account, fund. So a fund is just a separate set of books in your financial statements, but it can still share bank accounts with other activities.
Like water fund or
Yeah, you've got to,
enterprise water fund? Go ahead.
yeah, all of those, most of those funds that you have do not require a separate bank account. And we've gone back through Michigan law, we've gone back through grant agreements, we've gone back to ballot language, we've gone to Department of Treasury. Yes, sir.
Just so I'm on the same page, or hearing what you're saying, so you would say that the software, the general ledger system, what our first comptroller, when Mayor Bazzi became mayor, called, you can keep track of all that on the general ledger software. And so you're explaining to us the pool cash system, and how you're going to tell us the definitions of the different funds, and then, with government accounting, it's always how the dollar is pegged, where it comes from and where it's going, right?
Yeah, there are many different revenue streams that flow into the city, and whether it's because of law or ballot language or another public act or direction from Department of Treasury or Department of Transportation or any other agency or department of the state or federal government, there's a restricted purpose to all this money coming in, but not necessarily where you have to put it and keep it.
Thank you.
Now, how does something like Public Act 202, Act 345, things of that nature get separated out, and where should those be kept? Because that to me, years ago, was a big thing along with the PEG fees. And for years, we were told we needed money to fix our studio here, but we never had the money. And then all of a sudden, one year, it said, we found $895,000 of restricted money.
The money was here.
But again, that's exactly,
Okay, if you don't mind, nothing from the audience, please.
this was exactly the words that were used. My chief of staff found $895,000 of restricted money. I fell off the chair, okay, because we were buying parts on eBay for a camera. People couldn't hear us, and it was totally ridiculous. So then I started to look into that along with a couple other people, and we started going back through history when the PEG started, and we had this astronomical amount of money, $2-3 million, and it was only supposed to be used for PEG, okay? And we're trying to figure out where all the money went, okay? So we went back and looked at the Plant Moran things, and they would spell it out, but sometimes then they put it under transportation, and it wasn't clear to me. So that's when I wanted to have restrictions on some of these and in their own bank account, so I can pick up and look and say, hey, that's what I have in PEG fees. I know now we can spend $200,000 on this. And Act 345, when I first started as a city councilman, we were collecting $3.5 million for Act 345. And all of a sudden, three years later, it grew to $11.5 million, and I'm saying, wait a minute, how does this happen? Okay, well, there's other things rolled into that I didn't know that we weren't being told. But now we're being told, so I fully understand it. So, but, we wanted to keep that money to make sure that that fund always stayed the same, and same with Public Act 202. Now, if we can combine something together and have them separated out properly, I'm all for it, so mistakes aren't made. The big thing is to avoid mistakes on where the money goes.
Agreed.
But I just wanted to give you kind of a background of what I was thinking as a councilman.
And I completely understand why you get to that point, or why a municipality gets to that point, because all of the different restrictions and these revenue streams coming from different places, it is hard to keep track of what each of them can do. And so it makes perfect sense. You go back to pre-computer time, then we'd be doing like shoebox accounting. Well, this shoebox, that we're only doing water in this one. We're going to put the water money in the shoebox. We're going to take the water money out of the shoebox to pay a bill. But this shoebox is for streets, and we're going to do the same thing with that one. Keep it separate. It's the same idea, but the general ledger over the last 30 years, the software will do all of that for you. And as long as the accounting stays current, which it should, it's not a matter of looking at the bank statement. It's a matter of just looking at a report coming out of the general ledger. That should be provided to council and management on a regular basis. So let's go another slide further if you don't mind. I mentioned benchmarking. So we went to each of the municipalities as listed. Have here, these are all in the Western Wayne County area. And based on, these are ranked in order by population, City of Dearborn being the largest, City of Wayne being the smallest, and listed the number of accounts, both bank and investment, that each of the municipalities have, and then a total. And then asking the question, yes or no, do you have pooled cash? So we'll start with the pooled cash first. Only one other city in this study does not use pooled cash. Everyone else does.
Westland, their treasurer, which is appointed, started out in the treasurer's office here, and I know they do. That's all I'll say.
So the things that jump out to me, of all these municipalities, City of Dearborn Heights has the most checking and savings accounts. Now, on the investment side, you're not at the very top. You're number 3. The other communities that have a lot of them, yep, the third most, there's reasons why they have so many. And there's reasons why someplace like a Canton or a Livonia would have more checking and savings accounts, or at least be able to maintain them. And that's really the question here. So in Livonia, the finance director's been there for 25 years. The deputy treasurer's been there over 30. They've got it down. There's no, they can do whatever they want and keep track of everything, and it's fine. City of Westland, the finance director you mentioned, he's been there for almost 20 years, if not 20. And prior to that had been here, had been at Garden City. And he is also the treasurer. So there's no worry of turnover. He does both jobs.
He's the treasurer comptroller.
Treasurer finance director is his title.
And
So
is Canton the only township in the list? The rest are cities, correct?
correct.
It's a township.
All right, thank you.
But so like Canton has quite a few as well, but their deputy treasurer has been there 20 years, and the finance director's been there 10, and she's a CPA. She used to be our coworker.
Diane Slavin served in the legislature.
Yeah, and so the treasurers may come in and out on the election, but in their case, they have a deputy that's been there almost forever. And so they've got their system down, and they have a pretty significant sized staff. It's not a matter of right or wrong. It's a matter of accuracy and efficiency and the time it takes to maintain things and avoiding mistakes. If there are fewer accounts, there's fewer places to put the money, right? So, and if we're using a pool, most of that money is just going to go in the exact same spot. We don't have to worry about which bank account it went into, or are we running low on one and need to wire money in to make payroll or pay a bond payment.
Okay, we got a question here. Go ahead.
Let's say, for instance, the money's in a pool. Okay. And we need to pay something for this room right here. Okay. How do I, as a councilman, know it came strictly from that, or it didn't come out of general government?
Well, how do you know now? You don't know now if the check was cut out of a different account, right? You have to rely on your finance people to give you the correct information. Here is our financial statement for the month. On this line is where we expensed the building, the repair, the fire truck, the whatever. I mean, none of us, myself included, are in the comptroller's office when the check is cut. So how do you know it came out of the right account anyway?
So
The current system isn't any more accurate that way than what I'm proposing.
How would we find out then?
Well, if it's in the pool and the pool's being reconciled and you get a financial statement every month, you can see by fund, this is what fund or department paid for that item. The information is there and readily available.
Okay.
But there's also, don't forget, I mean, obviously, it's checks and balances between the controller and the treasurer, and that's what creates that type. And of course, you got administration overseeing everything, and then you got the audits every year through Plant Moran or whoever we happen to use that particular year that does the audits. So there is some checks and balances on that end. Go ahead, continue.
May I answer that question though? Because about the check.
Okay, let me, if you don't mind, treasurer, just,
Come out of the correct.
Yeah,
account.
ju-
When you have a checking account for each of these accounts which are already separated, we can see the money that you can actually. see
Okay,
the bank
if-
statement.
okay,
We
wait,
can't hear, so when
guys.
he's done, she can get up.
yeah, let's,
I would answer
yeah,
that.
if you don't mind, if you could do that maybe right when you first go up. Go ahead, Brian.
Okay. So our proposal is to take the existing remaining 40 accounts and consolidate it down to 13. And on subsequent pages, we have a timeline. Oh, actually, I'm sorry, I want to answer another question. So how do we know where the money is or where it came from? This is what your report should look like. You can see by fund how much cash is in each one. If the accounting has been reconciled on a timely basis, the report that you get is going to be no older than 2 or 3 weeks, which is almost instant in government. You can see exactly what you have.
I like the way you put that in government.
Real time.
It's as close to real time as we get. Now, how do we know that this account had, where is all this money? So this is a copy of a bank reconciliation for a pooled cash account for one of those cities that was on the benchmarking page. So the column on the left, I know it might be a little tough to see, but you can see all of these different general ledger accounts that are part of the pool. This is one bank account. All of the money for these, I don't know, I'm going to guess it's about 13, 15 funds. All of the money for those funds is in one bank account, and they're writing checks out of one bank account to take care of the bills of all these different funds. And it's reconciled once a month, so we know that the right stuff went to the right place.
And that's where we would get budget amendments if one account is running short.
Nope, not, your budget has nothing to do with cash. It's
Okay.
purely revenue and expense. And we are not going to plan to spend more than we have available. And if we go over budget, you run the risk of spending more than you have available, but that's part of the monthly reconciliation.
Now, I keep hearing reconciliation. This was my question that has been, and my purpose of writing the resolution that I did a week ago. Bank reconciliations are done by whom?
Currently, it's Plant Moran.
But
It
the
should be the
treasurer's
comptroller's office.
Okay.
Currently, Plant
See,
Moran based on
yeah,
the
I understand,
contract.
but I'm getting, see, here's my dilemma, and excuse me. I asked you a question, you kindly answered it. I have her shaking her head no. So this is the problem. I want to know who's supposed to be doing this, and that's the person that's supposed to be doing it. And and as a councilman, I don't want to have to pay you, or anybody else to do this if I have a person that's supposed to be doing it. This is taxpayer money I'm trying to save. If I have to pay you $700,000, well then, I want to get rid of a department and just pay you and get it done. Okay, simple as that. But if I have a person that's supposed to be doing it, I want it to get done. And if bringing it down to 13 accounts makes it efficiently that it can be done by in-house people right now, that's what I want. And this is why we call upon you as the experts. I've talked to her many times, and if she has a hard time doing this, I know our staff's gonna have a hard time doing it.
So I agree with everything you said. And the idea is that we're going to work ourselves out of a job over time. You still have some personnel changes to make in the comptroller's office. I know a person just put in their notice or left. But the comptroller's office has the responsibility of the reconciliation. Now, the treasurer's office has the bank accounts. They know what money's coming in, they know what money's going out. And they may do some kind of process that they refer to as reconciling, and that's fine. But a bank reconciliation is taking two sets of data. we're taking what went through the bank statement and we're taking what went through the general ledger. And we're comparing those data sets to identify things that are in one place and not the other. And if they're in one place and not the other, we either have to make a journal entry to correct the general ledger, or we have a reconciling item on the bank rec that says, well, why? This is why it's different. It's a timing issue or whatever. I mean, there are, deposits in transit or outstanding checks. The general ledger is going to say we have the money or we spent the money, but the bank may not know it yet because the check hasn't cleared or the deposit hasn't cleared. But the reconciliation process is between the data of the general ledger and the bank account.
Again, I understand that, but my question, again, I keep going. Who's supposed to be doing this?
The comptroller's office.
And depending on the.
Because the comptroller's office doesn't touch cash. The treasurer's department touches the cash. So as a check and balance over the treasurer's department, the comptroller has to keep the books.
Okay,
Okay.
I need that.
Let's-
But I don't know if the charter has that in there or not, but that's something that could be changed if we have to. I want to go with the recommendation of a professional CPA firm. That's what they get paid to do.
Okay, so council members, what I'm gonna do, just so that we recognize the time, I'm gonna let Brian finish his, speech, and then we'll write down whatever questions that you have, and we'll go ahead and ask, Brian, and then we'll go ahead and go with the treasurer. Go ahead, Brian. So we don't keep interrupting.
So,
Let him finish it up.
in the interest of time, I don't know that we have to go, unless you want to, I'd be happy to do it. If you want to go through every single account, what purpose it is, and what we're going to do with it. Or I can give you an overview of the
Give us an
process.
overview right now, and if we feel we're gonna need a little bit more time, then we'll set up a second study session at that particular point. But if you could do us a favor, though, your presentation, if you don't mind, maybe emailing it to the council members and the clerk, I'd really appreciate that.
Okay, the mayor's office can distribute however they see fit.
Okay, if you don't mind, thank you.
So we're going to do this in phases, or we propose doing it in phases. We don't want to close 27 accounts on one day, because that would get confusing. So we want to do this over several months, where we do a handful of accounts at a time, make sure that the accounting now, because we're going to have to make configuration changes within BSNA, we want to make sure everything's working right before we move to the next phase and close the next set of accounts. Wash, rinse, repeat, until we get all the way through the end. So we've tried to group them based on bank or based on just ease of doing it in these phases. So phase one is taking 5 of these different accounts and putting them all into what is going to be called the pool. And these are all at Comerica. So it's really just a matter of telling Comerica, close account number 123 and put it in account XYZ. And they will do that day. The other part of phase one, a long time ago, like 15 years ago, there's this big construction project across the street at the library. There's still $16,000 left over from that project. We went through a bunch of history to determine, yeah, that's the library's money. So we can just close that construction account and just give that $16,000 to the library. And we are recommending keeping the library account open and separate, because they have a different board, they've got different operations. That's fine. They're still part of the city, no argument there, but they're kind of a quasi-organization.
Similar to the courts.
Yeah, so we're just going to let library have a bank account, no problem. So that would be the end of phase one. Phase two, so you have several property tax accounts, and our recommendation is to have one. Michigan Department of Treasury requires one, so this is one we can't put in the pool. You do have to keep a separate tax account. And so we would take the personal property tax and the one from Chase, one from Dearborn Federal, put it into one account at Comerica. We're going to just keep our banking primarily at Comerica. This part of phase two is similar to the first slide of phase one. These are just extra accounts. We're going to put them all in the pool at Comerica. One of them is at Chase currently. The other 2 are currently at Comerica. Related to water, So you have an account at Dearborn Federal, and there's a water escrow account at Comerica. These can all go in the pool. There's no reason not to. But we do recommend keeping open the lockbox account at Comerica.
What is the lockbox?
So when someone mails in their check, instead of someone here opening an envelope and pulling it out, it goes right to Comerica, they open it, they deposit it immediately, and then give us a report of what they collected, how much, and from who.
Where it makes sense to me.
Phase 3, all 5 of these extra accounts are at Comerica. We just close them, put them in the pool.
Can you go back to that one?
Yes. So actually, let's spend a couple minutes on this because you mentioned PEG earlier, you mentioned 345 earlier. I mentioned the street funds. Nobody mentioned ARPA, but that's also on this slide. So there's nothing in Act 51, which is the law that gives us our street funding. There's nothing in there about having a separate bank account. The PEG fees are a little bit more complicated because there's both a state and federal law. Neither of them discuss having a separate bank account. Remember, it's restricted for purpose. We can only do something with that money. It's not that we have to put it in its own account. Same thing with Public Act 345. It's no different than your sanitation millage. We know by law, we can only use that money to pay for retirement
I just
costs.
got a quick question, and it's actually for Council Pro Tem, Council Chair, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
You know, before I was on council, wasn't the argument that you guys made is that you wanted restricted funds for the PEG and 345 and all of this?
And that's what I told him earlier.
Yeah.
Because we never saw a statement that says PEG fee has $895,000
I know, but
in it.
so you're not
I
using
never
the-
saw what Act 345, it was all in general fund. It was in general fund, and when I found out PEG fees was restricted, that's what the bell sounded off in my head.
So that we put it in a separate fund, not a separate bank account.
So a little background, at the
So-
time they kept saying
so
there was
what
no
we
PEG
did-
fees available. There's none.
Excuse me. So what we did was, good and bad, we should have a separate fund, not a bank account. Okay,
If you had the pool cash going.
I can understand that and it makes sense. So now when I pick up our audit report, I can look through it and it would state that.
You still have a PEG fund
And that's what
identified in your
and that's
statements.
all I needed to know. For years,
That's what Janet Bale wanted.
And nobody, so we had to fight for it, which made it even worse for whoever was taking care of this, because as a, not a council person, but I wanted to know what we had. And then when I became a councilman, it was even more frustrating, because I'm not a CPA. Hey, I was just taught, hey, go page 11 and 12, and that's all you need to read, okay? But again, you still gotta know what you're looking for.
Sure. Let's let Brian continue.
So-
Go ahead, Brian.
American Relief Plan, so you got a substantial amount of money from the federal government of these COVID funds. There is nothing in the grant agreement, there's nothing in what's called the compliance supplement, which is what the federal government puts out and tells us what the rules are in any given year related to the grants. There is nothing in that document, and it's a couple hundred pages. There's nothing in it about separate bank accounts. Couple other accounts that you have, there's an escrow account at Chase, and then there's the CDBG, the Community Development Block Grant account, also at Chase. Those can go to general fund as well, or excuse me, the
What's the
general
escrow?
pooled.
What's the escrow account for? I know what an escrow is, but
It should all be in pool, all those
The-
should be in the pool.
Commission, your fee club, that's where that money goes, because it has to be kept
Okay,
separate. And
all
then
right.
when they cash it out, they can pull it out of
Mm-hmm.
that account.
The general ledger will account for it.
Okay, go ahead, continue.
And then phase 4, final phase is, so previously, those are all savings and checking accounts. Phase 4 is the various investments that you have. All 6 of these on the screen are at Comerica. They're in separate investment accounts, but just like a checking pool, you can have an investment pool. So if you've got, surplus money for cash flow purposes, but you have surplus money from streets, you have surplus money from water, you don't have to worry about getting a better interest rate on one versus the other, or this other, it's not fair because this one's getting better than this one. It's all in the same place. It's all getting the same return. And the software will, at the end of the month, as we go through the reconciliation, it'll divide up the interest based on probably weighted average. Like, this is how much you had on average, during the course of the month, and it will automatically spread it. We don't have to do a bunch of manual calculations.
Okay.
And then to finish,
Pretty much it?
these are investment accounts at Dearborn Federal Savings. Same way, close them, put it into the single consolidated pool.
So in summary, we're going to go ahead and ask questions now by council members. So in summary, you believe, in your professional opinion, there are definitely too many accounts open, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. Council members, go ahead, but please go through the council chair.
From one side to the other.
Council Chair?
way down.
Well, go ahead, Councilman Wenzel, go ahead.
Thank you. Two accounts in particular, the PEG and 345. The accounts that they're currently in right now, do they gain interest in those accounts?
I'd have to defer to the treasurer on that. I don't know.
Do any of them gain interest?
They do not because.
Okay, if you don't-
45 should be-
Treasurer, if you don't mind,
You have to
at
be on the
the
record,
mic, so they can hear it. It's being recorded.
No, it has to be on the record.
All right, so to answer your question, no, they are not. They're in checking accounts. And Act 345, ideally, what I would like to see us progress to is making it part of the 15-day distribution schedule that's required by Michigan compiled law for taxes, because that is a levy that's on your tax bill. So that's the direction we want to go with that. So the answer is no to your
So
question.
wouldn't it be to our benefit to have them in a savings account where they would?
The Act 345, if you're distributing it every 15 days, no, because it would not end up being pulled in any account, because it's going to Act 345 where it belongs. Because we're collecting the taxes as a levy for Act 345, the police and fire pension system, and it would be part of the distribution schedule, just like the school districts are that we collect for, just like Wayne County that we collect for, the DIA, the zoo. We make those distributions every 15 days based on what we've collected during that 15-day period.
Okay,
So it wouldn't sit there, is my point. It'd be getting distributed.
For Act 345, but what about
Yeah.
PEG that you have hundreds of thousands of dollars that
Yep.
sit in there all year without being
So
touched?
PEG was separated, and this was before my time, into a separate account, and it was $900,000 opened the account into a checking account. Of that $900,000, I invested $800,000 with Morgan Stanley, where it's remained, and I continue to keep reinvesting it, so we're making proceeds off of those funds. So that is what is going on with PEG. Again, that was before my time, it was already open, but it goes to Councilman Muscat's point that there was concern with the council body, because at one point we were told, and I was a council member at the time, there was no money to upgrade the studios, and then they came back to us and said, oh, we found it, and that's unacceptable. So that's how that account ended up becoming what it is today.
On index
We
cards?
used to be able to
No, it is
invest.
not on index cards. I would be happy to answer that
Guys,
question.
okay.
No, I would like to answer that question.
I know,
because
but
think
if
it's a
you don't
little
mind.
Unfair.
Treasurer?
Yes.
I want to keep this meeting with the council members, and then afterwards, anybody in the audience that would like to go up and make a comment, they will
Yes.
have their opportunity to make a comment, as long as they make it respectfully.
Thank
Would you like me to answer that question, though?
Well, he'll have the opportunity to ask, and then you can ask that question at that point. Because I want to keep
Well,
it
you
here
s-
with the council members first.
Okay.
Go ahead, Councilman.
Will you still be able to invest that PEG money if it's put in the general ledger?
If I actually understand pool accounting, and I do support pool accounting up to the point where right now the general ledger's not accurate necessarily. If I was to say to you, if I went to you today, it's, give me February, is February accurate? The answer would be no, and I can show that. I'm willing to do this, but we've got to make sure it's done correctly, and I'm able to do my monthly reports according to the city charter with accuracy. And I think that's why I agree with phase one, to get us started and to see how we can do this and how it goes and if it works. And then we can talk about the other phases, but we can't just jump in, everything in until we know that it's going to work. I just discovered last week that there were a couple general ledgers when I took the bank accounts, which I do reconcile, and I compared it to the general ledger, which is the comptroller's responsibility, and I give them a lot of credit, by the way, for what they're doing. I give you a lot of credit. I want you to know that. But there were some general ledgers that didn't match the bank accounts. So therefore, when I come to you with my monthly reports as required by charter, I would be off. If I had told you that general ledger item, that commission was this amount of money, because that's what the general ledger says it's got $38. Reality is $695. What if I had told you that? What if I had given you the wrong amount off of the general ledger? I bet that commission wouldn't be very happy. So I actually keep spreadsheets to make sure. That's an escrow account, by the way. I keep track of that from the very beginning, from the inception of that commission, line by line by line. I
Okay.
keep track.
One other question, thank you. This is for either one of you up there. By putting all the monies, pooling all these into the general ledger, is that going to affect us or have us be able to invest any of this money?
I think eventually it would work, and yes, we would still be able to invest. Investments are about taking your idle money and investing it so you can make money off of that money. I'm a advanced certified public finance investment manager. And yes, I actually sent you folks today that investment report for February. I'm sending it to you monthly. You could see how much money we made. Your answer is yes, we can, once we know the general ledger is accurate. I believe in this. I do believe in this. I think it can be done. But I think it has to be done in steps, because we know that there are some things that the general ledger is not accurate right now. And when it is, then yes, absolutely. And that's why I agree with phase one to get the ball rolling here. I do support that. But I also want to make sure I'm able to present my monthly reports to you that are required by the charter. And those are based on bank accounts. And if the general ledger is going to be, and I agree with Poole County, you could separate them out.
I agree.
I can do that if they are accurate.
Councilman Ahmad, do you have any questions?
I just have one statement I wanted to finish up with. I'm in favor of this program, but I'd still like to see the PEG. That's kind of a pet account that this council that's here now is active.
Yeah.
I'd like to see that stay separate, just for the fact that you can look it up right away and you don't have to get on a program and see it. And you can see exactly where the money's going. It's something, it's an idle account, should be put into a, the investments make more interest than a savings account, would I take it?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
Right now, we're making about 4.78%.
Is our investment, is it guaranteed in any way, or are we taking a
Oh, it has
risk?
to be. It has to meet Public Act 20. So it has to be an A2, P2 is normally what I go with. For ratings, I work with Morgan Stanley, so we're working with advisor. It's not just me making the decision. They're making recommendations. I tell them I want to go 30 days, 60 days, based on what I can see is needed. For example, major, local, I always call Engineer Deeb and say, when do you need this money? So I know how long I can invest it for, so I can get the most bang for the buck, so to speak. So that type of communication happens, so I can invest the money correctly, but also make sure it's fluid when it needs to be.
But the answer can't be that it's guaranteed, because it's not guaranteed.
No, they're safe with the A2,
Well,
P2s.
I
That's
realize
standard
that. They're
reports.
safer investments, but not necessarily
Yeah.
guaranteed.
Yeah.
investments.
Yeah, Public Act, I mean, the safest
There's
is going to be.
no bank will guarantee
Yeah.
any interest.
No, unless you go with a government trust, so. But, that's very low interest bearing,
Right.
so
Pennies.
there are ways to do that. The CDs are very
And
safe.
thank you, Treasurer, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Ahmad, do you have a question? No. Okay, Councilman Baydun?
You answered most of them. One of my questions was,
Wait,
Treasurer,
Councilman, please.
Treasurer, my question was to you, is this something that you are supportive of, but you've answered that and you said yes? I mean, ultimately, I want everybody to be on the same page. I don't want any kind of
Yeah.
back and forth.
Yeah, we've had a lot of meetings, and I fully support that. And the comptroller and I and Michelle, we've had, I don't know how many meetings, but, I can agree to this, but again, I want to make sure that the ledger is accurate. that's got to be very important because my records or my reports are going to depend on it. And I would love to run a report that's so efficient, because we all want to be efficient and accurate.
I got a question for Brian. Going through some of the accounts, and there's a couple things that I've got. One of them will be for the treasurer afterwards, but let me start with you. There was multiple accounts. There's Dearborn Federal Savings, Comerica Bank, Chase, but I know there's a lot of other particular banks. One could argue, oh, well, because one bank gives us more interest maybe than the other. I don't know. I'm asking you. But with that being the case, why is it that we have it in so many different banks? Just logically, that would make it that much more difficult to keep track of.
There's a lot of different reasons why you might spread it amongst banks. I mean, risk is a thing, so diversifying your portfolio makes sense. There's ways to do that without being in so many banks. I've also been in communities where the thought has been, we want to reward the banks that have brick and mortar buildings in our city, so we're going to put some money at each bank that has a physical location. It's fine too. There very well could have been a case of we put some money in this account because for whatever reason, but then we at some point changed our checking account from Chase to Comerica or Huntington or the old Michigan National, or we change banks all the time. I say we, the industry changes banks all the time, chasing better interest rates, chasing lower fees. So it could have been a case of we went from one to another and just left some at one and never did anything.
So that's been one of the, I think, challenges here in the city is a lot of things have been done because, oh, that's the way we've always done it. That's the way we've always done it. And as not more treasurers, as different treasurers took over, they added different accounts. And now we are where we are with 40 plus 44, now 4 have been closed down accounts. That's just way too many on just pure common sense logic. So I'm all for, of course, bringing them down, and I'm all for leaving it at, either one or maximum 2 banks, not multiple banks. Now, on one of them, I know they take, taxes and water bills and what have you, and that helps. But then maybe we should switch our accounts to there. I just think it's so much better when you have it on one or 2 bank accounts. The second question I had is for the treasurer, and I know I emailed you about this, and I don't think we're on the same page with the question. There's a lot of service fees that are being charged.
Yes.
And
No.
in my email to you, you mentioned that, we end up paying no service fees. And the 2 banks that you emailed me back with, was Chase and Comerica.
Yes.
But obviously, we have accounts in a lot of other banks, so that does not give me all of them. That's one. And 2, the other concern that I've got, it's very easy to show that we have no service fees. They're at 0 because we're getting money back from the investments that we have at these particular banks. But it is still money lost. So hypothetically, for example, let's say this service fees, let's say we received interest of, I'm just going to use a number, of $100,000. And the service fee was $10,000. Then we can say, oh, we had 0 service fees because we still got 90. But to me, we still lost that 10,000. So that's something that's concerning for me, that we have that many service fees. And usually a lot of these can be, at least in my opinion, maybe it's the salesman in me, when you have a lot of money at a bank, you can negotiate a lot of things. And you can knock off service fees. And this is one reason why I was telling Brian, I don't like him to be at multiple banks. You have one bank, you walk in, you kick the door in, and you tell them how you want things done. They're not going to tell you how they want things done. So a lot of these service fees, they may be on the books, but if you tell them I want these waived, they'll waive them. You tell them I want something done, they'll do it if you have enough money there.
Okay.
So that's the question for you. But most importantly, the service fees over and above the 2 that you sent me.
Okay, so let me go ahead, if I may, answer that. The 2 primary banks that we work with are Chase and Comerica. Dearborn Federal Savings Bank, there's 3 accounts that are very low balance. They're there because of the payment centers that were set up many, many years ago. People like the payment centers, including tax and water, and they require general fund to be there in order to offer the processing of tax payments and water payments for residents. This is for service for our residents, the community, the customers. So that's why I talk about Comerica and Chase with you, which I did share with you.
Right.
And what I want to go to, though, is you're missing a key word here, which is earnings credit. Okay, so I meet with Comerica and Chase representatives. In fact, I just met with Chase today, and we always review and discuss ways that we can improve the service that we offer and process, like the check scanners, for example. We save a lot of time. We have reduced our NSFs, or returned items, and also our bank corrections, which take time and money, your staff. We no longer have that. So with the credit earnings, that is based off of your balances, not your activity. Your balances in your accounts and the number of accounts you have. And JP Morgan Chase, I gave you the report, the balance analysis, and it is zero. It is zero. They show you what it would cost you if you had to pay, but we're not paying that. So the reality is we are saving thousands and thousands of dollars because it's zero.
Okay, do
Okay.
we have, how many different banks do we have money in total?
We have money in Chase, and we have money in Comerica, and we have a small amount of money in Dearborn Federal Savings Bank.
Is there any other banks that have any type of funds?
We invest with Morgan Stanley.
Right, that's
Those are investments.
Yeah, that's
And we
separate.
also invest, we have 2 CDs right now with Flagstar. Because again, you diversify your investments.
Okay.
So we go with CDs.
Councilman
But
Ahmad?
may I finish? Do you
Yeah, go ahead.
mind? Do you mind? Thank you.
No, please.
I just want to talk about Comerica, because Comerica, we have, the savings is it's huge, because the only thing we're actually charged for are the wire payments, because they're not covered by the earnings credits. So that's like your payroll wires, your bond, your scheduled debt payments, those are all wires. We have to pay for the wires. That one can't be, exempted. And that was last year, for 2022, was a total of $748 for all the wires that we did. And everything else was zeroed out. So that's just what I wanted, and I sent you all that.
So I'm gonna tell you where I was referencing, Treasurer. So if you look at in the one for JP Morgan, for example, there's, you've got here earnings credit allowance, 13,983, okay? Then they subtract total charge for services, 3,880. Wow. And then you got net service credit, 10,103. So there's where my point is. Had we not had those types of service charges, we could have been potentially at 13,983 coming into the city versus just 10,000. Now, I know we might say it's $3,000, but again, with the amount of millions and millions and millions that we have there, I would like to see some of those waived, especially when we have them at much lesser amount of banks.
And I understand what you're saying, but you're talking a earnings credit of 13,000. That means we didn't pay because of the credit. That's why you're at zero. And not only that, but that's accumulative, which means it carries over for next month and the following months and the following months. So the reality is you are saving, and that's why I meet with them typically every 3 months, every other month, to try to make sure we're getting the best pricing for our service. You need to remember, the city of Dearborn Heights does a lot of business with accounts with a lot of money.
Okay, Councilman Ahmad?
Thank you, Council Chair. I know, Madam Treasurer, she did mention those 2 accounts, but my question is for Brian, if you don't mind. I know you have a recommendation for number 12 and number 13. I mean, I understand Morgan Stanley is an investment and Flagstar is a CD. So if we move on to Comerica, how can we keep those investments with Morgan Stanley?
No, they would stay at Morgan Stanley. They could stay forever, but in my opinion and recommendation is once they mature, close them and put it all in
That's if we
Comerica.
decided not to invest anymore.
You're still going to invest. You'll just be investing through Comerica. Now, I want to clear something up. Once we get the process corrected and streamlined, if at that point there are other institutions that the city would like to invest in, that'll be fine. We'll have a pooled system set up where you can take an extra million. It doesn't have to be identified as water's million or roads million. It's just a million that's in the pool. And we'll take that $1 million and we'll put it in a different account at a different bank or a different institution. But we can't get to that point until we bring it all back inside, and then we can move it around a little bit more if that gives a better sense of security or if it gives a better rate of return.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Any other questions from council members? Councilman Ray, and then Councilman
It's
Constant
prior
and
than the
Councilwoman.
last.
Okay. As I've been here for quite a while, my understanding is accounts get opened and closed with city council approval. Okay? And as we go through these phases, how are we going to go about doing that? And to save time, should there be some sort of resolution allowing this to happen, to bypass that, to get phase one started, phase two, phase three? Because then you're gonna be waiting 2 weeks for a council decision, okay? And then go on. Now, if everybody's okay with the 2 weeks, I would like to see it come in and say, we're closing the Morgan Stanley investments and we're moving it to Comerica, we need your approval. If everybody's good with that, I'm gonna be good with it. That's number one. Number two, having the investments will still stay in the pool, correct?
Yes.
But being in the pool, it'll show as a big pot of money, but again, nobody can take that out until that money has reached maturity.
If it's an investment that requires that, sure.
Okay. And question for the for our treasurer, how many people are really using the banks to pay their bills? Because I know for years, we always went to the bank and paid water bills, taxes, and then banks started phasing that out over a period of time. And I remember Dearborn Federal Savings used to do that, and they, all of a sudden they stopped doing this, for whatever reason. And we have the equipment that you put out throughout the city, people pay their bills there, and people line up outside the door here to pay their bills. So my thing is, I'm not really concerned about having a bank that's gonna take the payments, because I don't think very many people do that anymore.
Right.
People don't walk in banks anymore, they use ATM machines.
Yeah.
Okay, and if you notice, and if you notice, banks are very few and far between that have staffs anymore. So I'm not gonna concern ourselves of the banks that really go there and pay our bills. I think we should just wipe that off and not even use that as a criteria to do anything with. And that's my opinion. And I believe the council will vote on this eventually to do that. That's my say for the time being. Thank you.
Did you want me to answer that?
Yes, please.
Okay, because you know what? I thought the same thing, by the way. In fact, I said to you all, did I not? Yes, to closing Dearborn Federal Savings because it's very low, but there are seniors. I'm sorry. It's really distracting. Council Chair?
Go ahead through me.
I'm sorry. I'm going to ask that we try to hold our comments because the constant interruption is exactly that. It's not needed.
You can
Please,
say nothing.
please.
Please.
He's looking at me like.
I'm trying to be
Sir,
respectful.
please,
Please
I
don't.
told you, but I didn't say nothing.
Okay.
Okay. So again, there is, and I had a staff meeting today to talk about Dearborn Federal Savings Bank because I was ready. I was ready to close it. And they're like, no, we wouldn't do that because we get a significant number of taxes paid there in water. And I said, well, let's run the report and take a look at it. Okay, so that's our first thing tomorrow morning because our staff meeting was towards the end of the day. So I'm looking at that because I was prepared to do it. And I still am, if there's not an argument to be made for it. So, because you're right, we have the kiosks throughout the city. We have the online payment platform. We have the phone app. There's so many ways that you can pay through your bank. You can come here in person. You can use a Dropbox. We have a lot of payment options for people and payment platforms. I think we've really expanded that. So I am prepared to do that. I just want to review the numbers real quick.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Constant, go ahead.
Are you done?
Yes, I'm done.
Yeah, my questions are for Brian, or Plant Moran, not Plant Moran. what is it? Plant Moran Gap. And are you familiar with Sam Galanis and Morgan Stanley? He's.
I'm sorry, I'm not.
Okay. And that's just to distinguish, Morgan Stanley is not a bank, they're an investment house.
Correct.
And whoever, he would, just to explain who Sam Galanis is, he was the person for years who did all the investments for all the cities except Dearborn Heights. And he's
That's a
Greek,
question,
and
Council Chair.
he had all the cities and was always knocking on the door of Dearborn Heights, but never got in.
Okay.
So, and then just another definition, so we'll say John J. Riley II, last elected treasurer, and then our interim treasurer appointed by the council, who's is Mr. Zuhair Abdel Haq, and our current elected treasurer, Ms. Lisa Hicks Clayton. So, last elected treasurer, John J. Riley, first elected treasurer, since then, our current treasurer.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman.
Wait.
You all set?
Are you done?
I was just getting on the same, go ahead, let Nancy.
No, finish your,
Finish and then I'll.
finish.
Well, I'll let him digest that, and she can ask her question.
Okay, I don't know if you.
No, go ahead, Nancy, I want to be last, so I asked the newest
Go ahead,
question.
Councilwoman.
Okay, I see that we have Tifa, 3 different, 9, 10, and 11. Is there any reason they can't combined in some capacity?
I have worked in many cities where they do participate in the pool, but they are a separate legal entity. And so for our purposes, we said let's just keep them on their own. Tifa has, if it has surplus money, it will have an investment account. Brownfield, same way. Library, have a checking account and an investment account.
So you recommend keeping all 5?
I would say I'm fine with it.
Oh, okay. That was one of my concerns, that some more could possibly be combined and then broken out when need be. That's all I've got.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Constable, you all set?
Thank you, Council Chair. So, pooled account, I mean, we use that, you could say we use that system now. Anybody who uses any accounting software, any municipality or township, we're doing that now.
You do not currently have a pool, no.
We don't.
We don't, and that's what you're going to institute. And you're suggesting, and we're going to take your recommendation, and so what would you call our present system of accounting under our current treasurer? If not,
That's a great question. I don't know that there's a name for having separate accounts other than saying we have separate accounts. I don't know that there's an opposite term
That's
from
what I'm
pool.
saying, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I guess we could say that, let's do this, and this is my last thing I'm gonna say. Let's call that old system, and new system is pooled accounts, new paradigm, new
New system,
method.
sure.
New method is that correct, Brian?
The new system will be pooling,
Okay.
checking and
right.
investment pool.
One more thing, one comment, if you don't mind, please.
Oh, no, go ahead.
So with the more powerful software we have, that we've had BSNA for a while, it's a powerful, we were not utilizing it
Correct.
to its capabilities.
Correct.
And that seems to be a problem for us, not knowing how to use the softwares or not wanting to use the softwares, however you want to put it. Now that we're made aware that this is possible, this sounds like a good idea to me, where less mistakes are made, and comes budget time, this body here knows what we can spend and what we can't spend. Because at the present time, if things don't match up, how do I know what to say to someone when they propose their budget? Okay, and I just want to say that, that's a powerful software, and we need to use it. Thank you.
So now that we've had the presentation from Plant Moran, I'm going to have the treasurer come up and give us her viewpoint on this. And then there'll be a quick comment from the controller, get her side. And then Chief of Staff, did you want to, if you want to, you can come up and just say a word, and then after that, we'll have public comments. Go ahead.
Okay, great. So first, I don't think there are sides, by the way.
Well,
I think we're working
opinions,
together,
side,
okay?
call it
We're
whatever you
working
wanna call it.
together, and what we've agreed to and come to the consensus is, by the way, all these accounts, I only opened 4 of them. They were already open by previous treasurers. So it doesn't matter, but somebody, you want to keep alluding to that. I support pool accounting as long as there's accuracy. And right now, the general ledger's not accurate yet. Once we get there, we will be able to do this and implement it, and it will be very successful and streamlined. Because no, we do not use BSNA to its capabilities, and we should. We absolutely should, so I support that. I wanted to say real quick, the John F. Kennedy, the $16,685.17, that was a bond that is now, it's been finished for years and years, and that account is closed. It's already been merged with the library. Okay? That was a recommendation that I took away from the past 2 audit reports, that dormant accounts need to be closed. And we can do that. And I come to you, the council body, to open accounts. So, which is what I did with the 4 that I opened, by the way. This body approved that by resolution.
I believe we have to
Yes.
approve closings also, so we're aware of it.
That's, I'd have to look at the chart. I don't know if
But I
that's the
believe
case.
we have that authority.
You do
and-
have the authority to close, but it's, I don't think it's required.
I think it is required, that's something that this body should not give up, and I'm not going to argue about it.
Okay, well, let's move on. So Community Recreation Center construction is closed because those are 0 accounts, and they go back many, many, many years. These are accounts that have been left open on the books and have been resolved. We've resolved that issue. The 21 bond, per the bond language, it has to have 2 accounts. It has to have a proceeds account to pay for the payments for everything like the L43, the L42, 41. And then it has to have a retire the debt account. That's per bond language. It's in the bond language. So that's why those are there. The one thing I want to talk about, and what I'd love to do, and I think the comptroller agrees, is do direct pay. What's happening with your cash flow, this is my concern, is always cash flow. When I come to you, we're down to $500,000, whatever the case may be, I'm flagging cash flow as an issue.
I just want to say one thing real quick.
Yes.
If that's okay with you. And I've been meaning to say this. And with respect, so I made some phone calls after the last meeting stating that my hope, this astronomical number will not be able to make payroll. And again, I go back to this fear mongering that we do, where we make residents who are paying attention at home, excuse me, Council Chair, guys, but we tell them that, this isn't right, or we're not going to have enough money. Don't forget, tax season's right around the corner. So,
July.
and in the past, which I did my own research on, and then not to go back and forth, but we always get very, very tight,
close.
and then tax season comes around, and guess what? Well, just let me finish. But see, and Madam Chair, you know how much respect I have for you, Madam Treasurer, but I want you to know that was not said at the last meeting. What was said was that we could potentially be going bankrupt and not having any money, but we left out a part, that guess what, come January, June, or when taxes come in for your summer taxes, that money gets filled back up. And in previous years, in the last 10 years, this actually always happens, where the bank accounts thin out. My wife was watching it at home and was afraid. She said, hey, are we going to, what is going on? Dearborn Heights has no money. I had that message being said all across the city. So to the residents at home that are watching this, let it not be said that we don't have money in our bank accounts or we can't make payroll. We have to make sure that every year we see the same exact thing that has been happening. So I don't want to go back up. We are definitely running tight and we are definitely overspending. I agree.
Yeah, we are.
But we've always went through this, and guess what? When those levies come in, we're back at it.
Right.
And the money's there, and then so we're not going to miss out on payroll. We're not going to miss out on making these things. I just want to make that, and I mean no disrespect to you or to Mr. Zohair or to this administration or to anybody, but I did my own research on it. And, I asked my own questions privately, and I just wanted to make it clear for those who are running up to us and saying, and I believe we were at a dinner the other day, and somebody walked up to us and said, hey, we hear Dearborn Heights is going broke, they have no money. I don't want to hear that. It's embarrassing to me. It's embarrassing to all of us. Airing out dirty laundry that's not even real is wrong.
May I
So I
explain
don't
now?
want us to instill that fear in residents
Okay.
to people who are watching this at home, please.
May I please explain what
Thank
I'm
you.
talking about? So every month you get a statement from me showing the accounts and the account balances, correct? Okay. So I have cash flow. I know how much payroll costs me. It costs me around $800,000 every 2 weeks.
Right.
I know Blue Cross Blue Shield is about $660,000. So I actually send you the accounts payable list and all the breakdowns of the wires and everything. So when we get down to $500,000, I have to alert that we would not be able to make payroll. If I have $500,000 in the bank account in checking, and I know that my payroll coming up is $800,000, it's basic math. Now, let me tell you what the
I
problem
just have
is.
one question for you, for the record,
Yeah.
Madam Treasurer. Have you ever not been able to make payroll?
If you let me finish, please. I didn't finish. So let me finish what I'm talking about so we all understand. And this is what needs to be fixed is the process, which I keep saying and we agree on, is that there are interfunds because everything gets paid out of general fund, whether it's for local or it's for major or it's for some other department, and it should be coming from those accounts. And then now those accounts have to pay general fund back. Do you know we went almost 1 year without having interfunds done? That's close to $7 million a year. So there is where your cash flow issue comes from. It comes from the interfunds. And in my mind, if we did direct pay directly from the account that's incurring the expense, you would not have to do interfunds. You would never have a cash flow issue. I would never have to speak to you about it. I'm sorry, sir, do you have a question?
Talking to myself.
Okay, very good.
Talk to myself. I can talk to myself.
You certainly can, but try to do it quietly. I do not. Do I need index cards
Okay,
or something?
Mr. Owen.
I don't believe I do. Okay? So, again, I'm trying to explain this, how the accounts work. And when we're paying everything out of the general fund, okay, even if it's for major streets, or maybe it's for a water account, the water account has to get pay back to general fund. If it doesn't, you're short. Do you understand? It's kind of like me loaning money to my brother. He doesn't pay me back. I'm going to be hurting at the end of the month. You see what I mean?
You're robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Yes, that's all. That's all it is. And if we could fix that alone, okay, if we could fix that alone, you would never have to hear from me talk about it again. Direct pay.
Thank you.
Okay, we all set, Madam Treasurer?
One question.
I got one quick question for you.
You had a question for the
Yeah.
Treasurer? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair.
Yes.
Didn't we have to take $2 million out of the ARPA?
Yes.
To make the payroll in July?
Yes, so that's a great question. And what we have to understand about taxes, when those taxes come in, it's actually July 1st. That's for the new fiscal year, okay? We shouldn't be using it to pay for something from June or May of the previous fiscal year. Your tide goes like this. You start in July, you start collecting, you get up here to August, and now you're going to start spending September, October, and we're dipping down. The only time you have income coming in, revenue from your property taxes, your real taxes, is summer taxes. We don't tax in the winter. Those are Wayne County and school taxes, okay? So it's very common to have these kind of little waves going on. The answer to your question is yes, you did. You approved $2.2 million from ARPA money that was the second week of July, and that was needed for cash flow.
You all set? Well, let me just make sure, Councilman, you all set?
So as we collected money, was that paid back or in any way? Or just,
No, it was used.
Just used.
It was used by the general fund because ARPA rule is you can use up to 10 million for lost revenue. So you use 2.2 of what you could use of the 10 million. And your total is 24 million and some change.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Councilman, go ahead.
I guess it's a combination question for Brian, Michelle, and Lisa. Excuse me.
You're fine.
Clayton.
You're fine.
I'm so used to talking to you as
It's all right.
one-on-one. Will putting the money in the pool help with this problem of cash flow? That's now,
See it on
see,
the record?
Wait, it's
please,
gotta be up there.
this is
Make
the
sure
big
it's not-
thing.
Oh, you reminded me of something.
Will the pool help with cash flow? Yes.
So that
It will
right
also
there-
eliminate your need for interfunds.
There we go.
Okay, Brian, Councilman Constance got a question for you?
So, yeah, because I was going to ask our treasurer, Honorable Lisa Hicks Clayton, briefly what she agrees with on what you said today and what she said, but I heard her say that since she's been the treasurer, she's only opened 4 accounts, and I would ask both of you, so you opened 4 accounts since you're,
In the bond.
and how many accounts did our interim treasurer, who's also here, open while he was interim treasurer?
One.
Because there was a big upset about some, regarding our legacy costs, that account.
So that, you're probably, oh, sorry, I'm so sorry. I don't want to lean over you. Yes, so to answer your question, interim treasurer Abdel Haq opened 1 account, which was the PEG account. And that is something that my understanding is council wanted because of the backstory with that, if you remember.
I'm not talking about
The other, you asked me how many accounts you opened, sir, and I
No,
just
how many,
answered it.
when you said 4, I'm
I
sorry.
opened 4 at Comerica, which are all related to tax, and that was done by council, and approval by an adopted resolution by the council body in 2021. And that's why on your 2022 summer taxes, you see the breakout, which actually our residents really liked. So, and we separated those taxes out, and that included Act 345, and there's where your legacy cost and your OPEB, that's where the concern was, is how much are you taxing the residents for that? And there was a question, because I used to leave it in the general fund to the end of the year, and the question is, are we spending it? Because it's restricted funds, it shouldn't be spent on general fund unrestricted items. This way we know for a fact it's not happening.
Okay.
So Brian, my last question. So Brian, if you can, Plant Moran Gap, is that correct that our current treasurer,
I don't know when any bank accounts were open or closed.
gotcha,
Okay.
gotcha.
So thank you, Brian. Thank you, Treasurer. I'm going to have our Controller come on up, Cindy, and just give us a little abbreviated opinion, please.
Hello, Cindy King, Comptroller for City of Dearborn Heights. I do have a couple of rebuttal. First of all, the balance of the $2.2 million that came from the ARPA, I was under the impression that was to balance the budget. When I started, I believe that was to balance the budget.
To balance the budget.
Correct.
Thank you.
The other thing that I did want to rebuttal on is the ACH payments, the direct deposits or the direct withdrawals. I agree. We are in the process of working toward that. Unfortunately, we have been understaffed since I started here. You're all aware of that. Yes, the bank reconciliation statements are responsible in the comptroller department. Yes. My deputy was working on those. Unfortunately, she resigned yesterday, so we're at square one, starting again to try to train someone to come in, and that will get done. Secondly, when you say that the general ledger accounts are not accurate, you're right. I agree with you. However, the reason that they're not accurate is because we don't have pool accounting. And a lot of the information that's not coming from the treasurer's office on a timely basis or doesn't get posted correctly in the comptroller department, and that causes the general ledger numbers to be skewed. If we had pool accounting, this would be eliminated, as well as if we had full staff. A lot of this has to do with our staffing as well, which we've already talked about. We already know that if we have some employees that understand accounting terms, these things will be eliminated and things will be able to flow a lot easier and quicker.
So what I'm,
I have a question.
Okay, go through the chair, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
So Councilman Bedun,
so what I'm getting out of this is that this poll account is actually more beneficial to the city, and that, it really helps us move forward.
It would definitely help us move forward in many ways. One, as you had stated, that there is interfund transfers that doesn't get done on a timely basis, that won't be needed anymore. The reason that we have cash flow issues, we won't have cash flow issues anymore if they're all in the pool accounting, because sometimes the funds will be taken out of the wrong account, and then we have to move it back and forth, and that causes a lot of convolution. We don't know where the money is. How do you balance that? So if it's in the pool accounting, it's going to be so much easier and cleaner to be able to follow.
Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, you have a question?
Yes. So, Comptroller King, when you, two questions. When you say, you're saying your office, which we agree, your office, the Comptroller's office or department is understaffed, and it would be a good idea it's been previously recommended that when we hire additional people for the treasurer's office, we hire people with accounting background.
Accounting skills, yes.
Yeah. And both, anybody to be hired has to go through testing. both
Absolutely.
Offices. And, the software, the general ledger, pool accounting, those terms, dollars being restricted, unrestricted, interfund borrowing, that Treasurer John J. Riley, interim Treasurer Zuhair Abdul Haq, and current Treasurer, elected Treasurer Lisa Hicks Clayton. It's the recommendation of Plant Moran Gap that we go to our pool accounting system. So, because my question would be for our treasurer, very briefly, what does she disagree with as far as the recommendations of Plant Moran Gap? What does she disagree with? If you can
I don't
answer that.
disagree. I said earlier that I agree with pool accounting and understand it. I want it done in phases like they've proposed to make sure it works with phase one. So that way I can see how it works, because there are things that are being asked that the treasurer's office has not actually done and we're willing to do.
What do you mean by phases? I'm sorry. Right, phase.
Yeah, we're going to start with phase one of actually closing out 4 accounts and see how it goes. Then go to phase 2 and close out 4 more accounts and see how it goes.
Thank you.
Or five accounts, whatever it takes.
How long do you
Council
think this will
Chair.
take?
I would like to see it done before July 1st. However, I don't think that that's going to be feasible. I think it just depends on how long we can take to see how it actually works. I would say anywhere from 30 to 45 days each phase, and then give it 30 to 45 days to see the transition going through, and then start with the next phase.
With our current software.
Council Chair?
Go ahead,
Our
Councilman.
current software, yes, absolutely. BSNA is capable of doing this.
State of the art, the Cadillac
Now-
software is,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
go ahead.
Bud.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Now, we talked about this money in the pool. In the event an account or a budgeted item runs out of funds and money has to be transferred, they'll still have to go through council approval to do that? Is it a budget amendment, or can they just move money around the pool?
No, we're not doing anything different with the budget. As far as if the budget is over budget, it would still have to go to council for approval to amend the budget.
Okay, thank you.
We're not doing anything there.
Thank you, Councilman. Thank you, Controller.
You're very welcome.
And hopefully you can get some additional help soon.
Thank you.
At this point, I'm going to bring up our Chief of Staff, Mariana Hernandez, and she'll be the last speaker today, and then from there, we'll go to questions from the audience. Now, before you start, I'm sorry, Mariana. If we so choose as a council body, and if we feel we had to, we could always set up a second study session on this later on, but just throwing it out there. Go ahead, Mariana.
Good afternoon, council members. Thank you so much for hosting this meeting, first of all. As you know, I'm one of the ones who brought it to your attention in a council meeting. I wish I didn't have to get myself involved in this process, but I had been working with both the Comptroller and the Treasurer Department since November on trying to come with an agreement of which bank accounts and which ones not to come, and we were unable to reach an agreement. Again, the original plan in November, when we first met with Plant Moran, was to have all of these bank accounts closed by June so that we could start the new year with a fresh start. That way, there wouldn't be any mistakes, there wouldn't be any issues. We would start a new year with our new staff that could reconcile those items in a timely manner. So you mentioned a lot of things that I have a lot of things to say about, but the most important thing is that you have to pay attention. You are the fiduciary responsibility of our city, and it has been too long that there have been too many mistakes that no one is paying attention to, starting with the PEG fees. So you claim that no one was tracking the PEG fees. However, the $900,000 that were moved do not match what your audit report for that year said. So there has to be a correction done there now. This is scary because right now there are no policies in place with regards to who can open a bank account, how much money can be moved there, how much money can be investment, and when can it be closed. So I advise that you pay attention to those policies in your charter.
Well, she can't open up, no treasurer, nobody can open up a bank account without the approval of this council.
There is no rule that says that, and it happens all the time. So
many
again,
accounts
I
have been
try
opened
to
without
find the
approval?
backup for how those bank accounts were opened. There is no record whatsoever. So right now, your treasurer can open, close, invest, whatever they want, without anybody knowing.
Wow.
Okay. Quick question from Councilman Constant. Okay.
Some of the treasurers were open with resolution. The ones that were closed, I never saw a resolution for the ones that were closed. So half of them are, half of them aren't. Again, we just need a policy. So I'm advising you to continue this conversation so that this is a clearer area of conversation, because when the Comptroller's office doesn't know a bank account has been closed, there's a lot of questions and a lot of mistakes that can happen in that process. So that's just one advice that I have for the council members. With regards to the responsibilities of each department. Again, read the duties of the Comptroller's office, read the duties of the Treasurer's office. There needs to be clarity on who's responsible for what tasks they're responsible for, and who gets to make the final call with regards to those decisions. I advise you to give advice to the administration and to your elected official and your appointed Comptroller on how to run those. Some of the issues that I have found, again, the general ledger is not accurate, and this is an issue with both departments. There's money that comes in, for example, for a grant, and it gets posted into the wrong bank account. So then we're looking for it in the bank account where it should have been, and it's not there. So then there has to be an allocation that fixes it. That has to be done manually. All of these manual transactions that we're doing because of the mistakes that are happening, because of the amount of bank accounts you have, are extremely time-consuming, which is why you never have bank accounts reconciled in a timely manner, because you're always fixing day-to-day mistakes. With regards to Act 345 and moving the money to the levy as soon as it comes in every 15 days for the disbursement, again, be careful with what you're choosing to do. Half of the Act 345 money that gets levied stays in the general fund. Half of it is for your healthcare expenses, the salaries of your pension board, and the administration fees that the Act 345 board gives us for our staff expenses, including the treasurer and the comptroller. So be careful with moving all that money straight away, because it gets expended in a different account, which creates cash flow issues, by the way. With regards to the dormant accounts being closed, again, I haven't seen a policy that allows dormant accounts to be closed without council approval. Be careful. I encourage you to pass a resolution at the next council meeting. We had proposed originally to do phase 1 by the end of this month. I encourage you to do that.
Wait, let her finish. I just didn't hear the distinction of words. Go ahead.
So again, the purpose of this study session isn't just for you to listen to the issues that we're having, but to actually take action and give direction to the administration. If you don't start closing these bank accounts in a timely manner, which I recommend that you close phase 1 by the end of March, phase 2 by the end of April, phase 3 by the end of May, and see how it goes. But if you don't close them in a timely manner, then we're going to need to request additional staff in both departments, because the current system is extremely manual, extremely time-consuming, and it has so many errors in it that that's what you're spending all of your time on. So again, choose, where do you want to spend your money? Paying Plant Moran to fix all of these issues, or closing the account so that there are no issues?
Okay.
Mariana?
Mariana, Chief Staff, some council members have questions.
Moving on,
Councilman Constant and Councilman Bedun.
Señorita, and I hear you when you say, you know, the chief of staff shouldn't have to be involved in this. You just read the charter, follow the charter. And so my one question, do you think a second study session with just the council over this issue would be very beneficial?
I think you should just take the advice of Plant Moran. They've looked at this for months. They know our city better than anybody. They're the experts in the area.
And so a second study session would, for example, help this city council a second study session would help this council to understand that, correct?
Yes, I think so.
If you need more clarification, you can have a study session. I am recommending that you make a motion at the next council meeting and close the first
I
phase of
agree.
the accounts.
Gracias.
Councilman Bedun?
I'm all second.
Okay, Councilman, you had a question for someone?
Well, I don't know if it's a question or not, but, you know, we're coming down to, again, legalities that I think our corporation council has to look into of what the powers are for this council as versus our comptroller and treasurer, who opens, closes, what. In the past, I've always, when I've been here, and even when I sat in the ordinance, our treasurer, John Riley, would always come to city council and say about moving investments and wants city council's concurrence. And they always did, as far as I can remember, okay? And that to me, and having this meeting only suggests to me that this body has control of what goes on. This is what city council does. We control the finances, okay? And it's time that we step up and do this, okay? So, I think council has the last decision on this.
Yes.
And I believe a motion, I don't know.
We can't make a motion.
No.
You voted no
But we have
on the
to,
resolution.
I think we have to do a resolution to get this ball rolling by Tuesday. This is by next Tuesday. We need to have it at the clerk's office no later than, I would say, Thursday early morning. Okay, so you could approve the agenda.
Right.
And I don't know who's going to be able to do that, if it's one of the council people or the administration. I'd be more than willing to do that if necessary.
Council Chair?
You were the deciding no vote on the resolution, but we did. Remember you?
Let us finish the statement. Guys, stop interrupting.
That's before we had this study session.
Okay.
Right.
So now we're well aware of what needs to be done. And I already think I've made up my mind of what I want to do, okay? And so I don't know how, or if anybody else
Let's
wants
be
to.
careful with voting on this.
No, we're not going to vote any,
Yeah.
but we need to find somebody that's going to do this, okay? I don't want multiple people doing it and flooding it.
I'm willing to start the resolution, no
Okay,
problem.
and that's great.
Council
So
Chair?
Okay.
we got to have it so we can vote on it.
Yes, I agree, but before doing so, I think the councilman said it right. I would like this to go in front of our corporation council, give us the legality of everything, because we're not just gonna make a resolution without the support of our corporation council. So if you want to refer that to corporation council to look into it, you know.
But I really think we
Even
should
if
go
it
ahead and get
means-
started with this.
Yeah,
ASAP.
100%. I mean, that we didn't have the study session to not take any action. I mean, look, I mean,
Absolutely.
we're paying a lot of money to Plant Moran Group, and if Plant Moran Group is giving us the recommendation, and these are
Plant Moran Gap.
the experts, and then we're gonna go with the recommendation of the experts under, we wanna make sure that for the legality and making sure that we're following the charter, because that's the most important at the end of the day, is that we're following the charter. And then we can go forward from that. Thank you.
Okay.
Brian, do you agree? You agree? Brian?
Yeah, I mean, that's why it's
Yeah.
presented like that, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so at this particular point, During a study session, the council has no obligation to have any public comments, but I am going to allow public comments. But I'm asking everyone in the audience that would like to speak or on Zoom, no problem, we will let you speak. But you got to stay respectful, no name calling, no yelling, no screaming.
That whole time?
Yes, we'll go ahead and hold the time.
What's the time gonna be? 2 or 3 minutes?
We'll give them 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Okay? You will ask your question, you'll have somebody to be able to answer it for you, it depends on who you're asking the question to. I would like to ask the members of the council during this meeting and during regular council meetings, when somebody's making a comment, especially on agenda items, don't answer back. This is not a back and forth type of thing. If somebody comes up to the audience right now and has a specific question to a specific person, we will have that person get up and ask. But, again, I'm all for freedom of speech. You could say or ask whatever you want, but just stay respectful, please. Otherwise, I'll have no choice but to ask you to leave at that particular point. So please don't force me to do that. Thank you. Anybody in the audience that would like to get up and speak? Come on up. Please state your city, street, and name. Whoever wants to come up first.
Good evening, everyone. Zuhair
Good evening.
Abdelhaq, Rosemary.
Dearborn Heights.
Dearborn Heights, Wayne County, whatever you want.
There you go.
Just to respond to my friend, Councilman Mubaidoun. I recall I did not say the city is broke. I did not say anything of that kind. I asked the treasurer if we take all the restricted funds, does she have money to make the payroll until June? She said no. And I asked city council and the administration, and that's what I said, to take money, move money from someplace else to make sure that you have enough to make the payroll, or move money from the ARPA, which you are allowed, what's left of it, around probably, I would say, $7 million to make the payroll. Those were my words. You can go back and check what I said. It's online. I did open one account when I was in the treasurer's office after I called the president and the vice president of the council and 2 other members, and they asked me to go ahead and move $900,000. And for the first time in the history of the city, I invested $800,000 and they made $1,000 interest, which went back to the PEG. The interest on the PEG never, ever, ever in the history of the city was credited back to the PEG account. So there was so much about that. What I do agree with, there is so much left over. If you allow me to finish, I'll finish. If not, I'll go sit down. But take my little 2 cents, and maybe that will help. There are lots of mistakes happened through the treasurer. The treasurer received the money through the window. At the end of the day, each teller, they make a report. That report is reviewed by the deputy of the treasurer. Then it goes to the treasurer to make sure that everything is correct. If a mistake happened, that should be corrected. I don't think there is any intentional misleading or any fraud or anything, God forbid. I do agree that we should consolidate some of the accounts, and I would like to leave the PEG and the administration fee alone, because that money by state law goes directly to the treasurer expenses, into the assessor, and probably the board of review. And I do recommend to the administration and to the council, you are responsible for the money. Open your eyes for everything comes in front of you, and hire somebody who has an accountant degree, whether to her office to help her or to the other office, because the money is there. And thank you very much.
I just want to respond to one thing, Council Chair, if that's okay. And what I stated was, I didn't say you said the city was broke. What I said was that I'd be at an event and somebody approached me and said, hey, why am I hearing that the city is broke? I know you never said that, and what I was referencing was you and her.
Okay.
Thank you.
City, street, name.
Rachel LaPointe, Merrick Street, Dearborn Heights. I think this is a great concept. In general, it's a lot like how I do my family budget. We've got an awesome program, all the money's in one account, and then I just separate it all out. It's very much, I think, normal accounting. I think most people can understand that. I will say I did some quick Googling. The state of Michigan's accounting manual, best practices kind of thing, those bank reconciliations should not be done by someone who handles the money. So that, in our city, that would mean the comptroller is responsible for the reconciliations based on what the treasurer gives her. So it sounds like that's where we're headed. It sounds like it's going to be good. I love it. I did want to ask, to help build trust with the residents, how are we going to be moving forward communicating some of these things, like the reports and stuff? I think that there's a lot of concern that if all the money is in one pool, that, you know, somebody could say, well, I need this thing for my budget. It's a couple months until the new fiscal year. I'm just going to do it. And then come the new fiscal year, nobody's even going to notice because it's going to all wash out in the end, right? And how, as a city, especially I think our treasurer as our elected official kind of in this department, how are you planning on communicating these things to the public on a broader base, maybe on the website, something like that? Is there going to be more regular reports that also come to the public so that we can see what those balances are like, even just very general reports? Is there some sort of plan for that? So that would be my only question right now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else in the audience?
I'm happy to answer that, and those are great suggestions. Currently, the quarterly investment report is something that does come before the council body, and so that's public information, okay? That includes all investments, including the J funds, Morgan Stanley, and Flagstar. I've gone to a monthly reporting, so as well, which I have, and they're not cards. It's actually a spreadsheet. You guys received it. No cards. So with that, I'm more than happy to make that information available. As far as like, you know, no bank account numbers, of course, but I can certainly tell you what, you know, what was the beginning statement, what was the outflows, what were the inflows, what's the ending, which I already provide to the council body monthly, and that's required by the city charter. So I'm happy, I'm happy to do that. I think it's a great idea. Thank you.
Council Chair, I think that Mrs. LaPointe's question was, you know, how could a resident access it without having to call the treasurer and having the treasurer take the time and doing this? I mean, she just look it up herself. I mean, basically.
On the website, on the
Okay.
treasurer's page, absolutely.
Obviously, the audits are also on there too, in case. Okay, anybody else in the audience that would like to come on up?
Somebody wants to share their minutes with me.
Wait, did somebody what?
Wants to share their minutes with me because I'm a public.
I didn't hear what he said. 1 second, guys, one at a time.
Somebody wants to share their minutes with me because I'm a public actor.
They're not allowed to. I'm sorry. So who would like to come up next?
I'll come up next.
Come on up.
First of all, I would like to ask a couple of questions to the mayor. Mr.
Okay,
Mayor-
but everything has to go through the chair, please.
Okay. Can I ask?
Name, city, street.
Public activist. I don't give my name in the street. Hassan Ayun. I just wanted to ask you guys.
What city? What city? This is-
Dearborn.
Okay,
Okay.
go ahead.
So I want to ask the mayor, does Lisa use any index cards?
Okay, all questions have to be through the
Okay, I'm
council chair.
asking.
Okay, we'll have her ask whatever questions you
I
got.
want to know an answer from you guys. Does she use index cards?
We don't know.
I don't know. I'm not inside her office to know that.
We don't know.
But we'll allow her to answer that for you.
Okay, I'm going to do a FOIA request. I'm going to ask for the index cards, first of all. Second of all, does she use a computer?
Yeah, I do know that she does, yes.
She does use a computer, right? Why the index cards then?
Okay, one second.
Let's continue.
Go ahead,
Okay.
continue.
And there's a question that people want to know. Why is there 42 bank accounts, so 40 bank accounts open? For what reason? Take all those bank accounts, keep the commercial bank accounts open, the water one, the tax one, and combine it all together. Dearborn has 5, okay, and they have more residents than you. Keep 5 bank accounts, same thing as Dearborn, because you guys are a smaller place, and I'm asking that if she wants to use index cards, nobody uses index cards. She does use index cards. Everybody says that.
And Dearborn does not have.
Okay,
an elected treasurer.
Councilman, please.
Right, so.
What do you mean? Hold on. Did you see on the chart? They said 5 bank accounts open. It was on the chart. What do you mean they don't have 5 bank accounts? How many bank accounts do they have?
Okay, Councilman, we already agreed.
How many bank accounts do they have? Let me ask you that. If you're the smart guy and you're sitting there commenting, how many bank accounts do they have? Go ahead, say something.
Okay, when you're done, he'll have the opportunity to
I'll
answer.
say what I said. I
Okay,
apologize.
there's no problem. Apology
I shouldn't have
accepted.
spoke.
But all I'm trying to say is, what's going on in the city, this is unbelievable. You guys don't even know how much money you have. I think you guys should file a motion as of today or whatever and say we're only having 5 bank accounts. That's it. Because this is unacceptable. Nobody should sit there and have this many bank accounts open. And I think that every 3 months, you guys should follow up, see what the status is, how many bank accounts did she close? Because this is unbelievable. Who has this many bank accounts in a small city? This is a small city. This is not Dearborn. Detroit has 6 bank accounts open. 6. And they have more people than you guys. 42 bank accounts for what? Under the FOIA request, if I ask her, how many bank accounts did she approve? Would she send me it? You will? Okay, you'll send me everything you have for the
Time is
last
up.
10 years,
Mr.
right?
Owen, your time's up.
And what you
Mr.
spent and everything, right?
Mr. Owen, please
Okay, no
respect the
problem.
time. Thank you. Okay, we can't, okay, just a quick answer, please,
No,
Treasurer.
I do want to address this because here, you left your things here, sir.
Oh, you can keep them. It's a gift from me
I
to
will
you.
not. Thank
Oh,
you.
it's a gift.
Okay.
First of all.
You guys, if you're not gonna have respect, then I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to
He's
ask
not
you,
being
so please.
respectful, but that's all right. Listen, you all know how you get reports from me. Are they on index cards? I will tell you that when I came into this office, all these accounts were already open, with the exception of the 4 that we mentioned on Comerica, and then the 21 bond, which is Chase.
Okay.
Which is required to have by the bond language.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you, Treasurer.
So, well, I'm not done, though, if I may, please, sir.
Okay, but
Please.
we're gonna have a quick
Okay.
answer.
And I have a lot of respect for John Riley. He liked paper, he had paper trails, he had a system, he had a process that worked for him, okay, for 26 years. But we need to update that system. We need to refine the process. We need to be more efficient, which is what we all agree on already. Now, the card system, I'm going to tell you where it came from, whoever wants to know. That was something that Mr. Riley did, absolutely. But, sir, you know what? I will give you my statement right here. This is the most recent investment report. This is not on an index card, is it?
Okay. Thank you very much, Treasurer. All right, anybody else? Come on up.
I would like that back, please.
City,
Trepkowski,
street name.
yeah, I know. Trepkowski, Columbia Street, Dearborn Heights, Wayne County, Michigan. My concern is like, I know you did mention that the TIFA accounts were going to be separate, and Mr. Roscoe is going to be taking care of that stuff. What worries me is how delicate or precise block grant monies are recorded, transpired. So what's going to protect those monies? I mean, should they be listed as a separate block grant money account for whatever project that is that they're going to be used for? So instead of putting them all into this pool, is my only question. I mean,
You know, I'll have him answer you as soon as you're done. We all
Okay.
set?
and then if you remember, I don't know if any of you remember, but every time we turned around when Mr. Paleko was mayor, he was opening bank accounts left and right, opening account for this, opening account for that, account for this. I mean, no wonder we've got so many accounts. It's not hard to believe every time we turned around, there was something being opened. And or any of the council members, if you were paying attention, John Riley always did say that we're getting into this time of year where the money's getting thin, but as soon as we get into the tax rolling season, we're going to have our money back.
Right.
So bear with them and give them time. So those are my questions. I'm concerned about, how the block grant money is going to be taken care of, and the TIFA and the brownfield monies.
Brian, can you give him an abbreviated answer, please? Thank you, Vince.
Thank you.
You'll be up next. He's going to give an abbreviated answer.
So it's really no different than anything else. It's not a matter of safeguarding the cash, it's a matter of the budget. So you start the year with so much, you know that you're approved to get so much from the federal government for CDBG, and you have approved so much in the way of expenses. So it's not a question of that money, and CDBG it's a reimbursement-based grant. So you spend the money and then the feds repay you. So I don't have any concerns that we would need a separate account or any special treatment. The federal government provides the rules that we have to follow, and as long as we're within those, and we are, then we're fine.
Okay. Thank you, Brian. Anybody else in the audience that has a question? Come on up, sir. City, street name.
This is not a, I just want to tell everybody after the meeting, please stay for a 5-minute surprise for Moonby.
Oh, man, hey, we're not.
Birthday.
Okay.
Council,
Okay.
that's it, we're not doing that here.
Okay, come on up.
Today, Paul? Mine's
Today.
the 25th,
My friend sent it.
Greek Independence Day.
That's it.
Seriously.
Go home. Not even joking.
You know what I'm saying? No.
Okay, go ahead.
Hassan Saab, John Daly, Dearborn Heights. A few questions to the treasurer.
Street name, I'm sorry.
I did, I said John Daly.
Okay.
A few questions. How many assistants or anybody in her office are actual accountants or financial advisors or anything like that? I'd like to have an answer for that once I'm done. Secondly, is all this hundreds of thousands of dollars that the treasurer is investing, who has oversight over that? I mean, what financial background does she have for investments? I mean, when we invest on in stocks, we go through advisors, we go through a firm. Is council getting any information about these investments or the residents? This is our money. Or do we know what type of investments they are? Like you said, Chair, investments are high risk. And there's no guarantee to the bank's money because the economy can collapse tomorrow. No one knows.
Right.
Is there oversight? Is there accountability on that? Is there any incentives or is there any kickbacks to that? I mean, as for the treasurer's office, how many to the mayor's office or to the council or anybody that knows, or to the comptroller's office, how many millions of dollars has been misaccounted for and refound under her administration? Last and foremost, when I met with the treasurer over maybe a year and a half ago, the mayor was present and took me to her directly. I sat with her in the conference room back here. In her own words, she said that she had no idea what account my money for my permits was put into. And I've sent her copies of the check multiple times. She has not found it. She told me I would have to check my flashcards to see where it would have went. At one point, she said it might have went to my back taxes, which there was no property on the lot. And I actually have an email from her also. Last and not least is, honestly, I just want to know what qualifications does she have in the financial business to see tens and tens of millions of dollars in the city? And most important is our investments. What are returns on them? Where are they from? And who's guiding her to it? Thank you.
Okay.
Would you stay here so I can go through that entire list? Okay, so first of all, I do have my advanced certified public finance investment manager, which is through the association, excuse me, if I can finish without interruption, Association of Public Treasurers of the United States and Canada. I also will be earning in April my Michigan Certified Public Treasurers certification from Michigan Municipal Treasurers Association. I've also completed 4 Harvard certifications, including, Harvard.
Okay, guys, come on.
Finance, including one of them, finance accounting. However, I will remind you that the position of treasurer is an elected position. The only requirement is you need to be 18 years of age, to be a resident of the city of Dearborn Heights, and be a registered voter. So therefore, there's nothing required. And we could say the same thing of, does somebody in the, a different office have this degree or that degree? And the answer is no, they do not. So now, your question regarding investments. I just told you my qualifications for investment management. However, I will also tell you, I already told you earlier today, that I work with Morgan Stanley. I don't know if we're maybe doubting their credibility. I don't know. I'm pretty sure they're very good at what they do. And we also make sure our investments require and meet the Public Act 20. That is the Investment Management Strategy Public Act. Okay, so we're in compliance with that, and that is very safe. Oh, I do want to address one more thing, if I may.
Experiment, what happened?
I do want to talk about that. Thank you, sir, for reminding me. So that was, I was elected in November of 2020. And they came to me, including the mayor and this gentleman, and I had been in office about maybe 3 or 4 months, and they were talking to me about a permit and some kind of scandal with the building department. I believe it became some kind of legal issue. And what I did, excuse me, please.
How's that legal issue?
Okay.
Please, yes, if I could just go on, please. I'm not an attorney.
Don't make me kick anybody out.
Okay. So again, what I did as a courtesy is I looked, and I had our staff on 2 different occasions, which took about 2.5 to 3 hours each time, look for the building permit, the copy that we keep in the treasurer's office as backup to the building department. We could not find it. And so with that being said, that's what I could not find. I never talked about where it goes because building permits go into general fund. So with that being said, that was never something that came across what I said. And I said to the gentleman, and I called you several times and have emails as well, that I said, you need to present the copies of the checks, the canceled checks. And hold on, because we didn't have record. He's saying I deserve a refund, but there's no record. So therefore, present your check so we can prove the record and authenticate. However,
Okay, nothing from the audience. Mr. Saab, nothing from the audience, please.
excuse me, he never presented anything to us.
Okay, I know. but-
He said he presented it to
Mr.
somebody, a
Saab, thank
staff
you.
member. That
Okay.
staff member never got it.
Okay, but
He never presented it to
Okay.
me, and I continue to call, and I have the
So-
record of that.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else in the audience?
Council Chair, really quickly, you just stated that the crowd gets out of control a little bit, you have to ask them to leave. How would you enforce that?
When there's police officers here, I'll have them escort them out. If there's no police officers here, I will call the police.
That's why I've been requesting for so long to have police officers at every meeting.
And they are here.
I will help them.
They are
Through the
here.
system. I'm actually a Wayne County Sheriff Reserve. I'll help them.
Then didn't you open up for a lawsuit there?
Ahmad
All right, Councilman, please.
Ahmad Fawaz here.
Sir, please. Guys, let the gentleman speak. Go ahead.
Ahmad Fawaz here at Street. Just real quickly, I like how this meeting's being run today. It's actually a lot better than it's been in the past, so good job,
Thank you.
with that. That being said, last meeting and this meeting, I heard several things that just they're not sitting well with me. The last meeting, the treasurer stated up here, and we can go back and look at it, saying there's only 28 bank accounts. Today, we were presented with Plant Moran and the comptroller, and I think everybody here, nobody disputed that there's 44 accounts up there, or 40. So, I'm wondering, are we just making things up as we go along, or do we really not know what's there? It's not, I'm not saying that you're making anything up, I'm just saying, do we know or do we not know? The next thing is Mr. Saab, and that check that he's talking about, I know was given to the mayor's office, and it was turned into the treasurer's office. I don't understand how the treasurer is going to stand up here with the administration here, with corporate counsel, with the city council, and say that he didn't turn it in, when in fact now
Mr. Saab, bring the check back and let's see if she's telling the truth again. Because if it shows that she's not telling the truth again, then Madam Treasurer, you need to resign. And we need somebody up here that does understand the business and knows what they're doing. I understand that, Council Chair and some of the council members do have finance backgrounds. They asked you legitimate questions, and you did not give proper answers. And now we're going back and we're looking at things that you're either misstating deliberately or you just don't know it. So whichever one it is, I'm not comfortable with you handling the city's money.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fawaz.
Thank you.
Anybody else in the audience that would like to come on up and speak? Seeing none. Anybody on Zoom? George, I don't know if you have I don't see anybody on Zoom that has their hands up. No. Okay. No other questions from council members?
Move to adjourn.
There's no adjourning.
No, adjourning is done.
All right.
Good night, ladies and gentlemen.
Good night.
Meeting's over.